Thank you, Frederick. Well, it's good to see you. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're coping with the current situation and your families well. I'm in your hands. I'm delighted to be seeing you again, talking to you. Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, sure.
I would like to ask about the two locations the agency wants to visit. What's special about them, and whether there is any possibility that Iran might cooperate?
Can you repeat? I cannot hear you well with your mic.
Should I take it?
Yes, please. Yeah, it's better.
I'm asking if there is any possibility to have more information about the two locations the agency wants to visit.
Yeah. Well, this is precisely why we are asking for access, because we need more information. So we certainly hope that our efforts will succeed and will eventually be allowed in.
What are the things that makes you really insisting in visiting these locations?
Well, these places are, we have reported back in March and again now. We have information for a number of years already that we have been corroborating and validating that indicates the possibility of the existence of nuclear material or activities there, which justifies the fact that we are reaching out and asking Iran for more clarification about them. In fact, it's about 3, but one place is no longer relevant in terms of a potential visit there. So this is the basis of our interest at the moment.
Any other questions? Yes, Jonathan?
John.
Thanks, Mr. Grossi. 2 questions. You reiterated calls for members to rescind their SQPs today and to apply modified or full CSA, hopefully with additional protocol. When do you expect the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to rescind its SQP and to implement full scope safeguards? And along with that question, the IAEA, even before you came in, has been assisting Saudi Arabia with the front end of its nuclear fuel cycle. Can you give us an update on the outcomes of that fuel cycle assistance in Saudi Arabia and kind of explain to us why a country gets fuel cycle assistance before it has a safeguards regime in place?
Very good. Well, there are several questions in that. I think the SQP and rescission of SQP is something which is very important for us. We believe that limiting the ability of the agency to have information about activities in countries is very important. In this particular case, there is an ongoing project, as you know, of a low-power research reactor which has not received fuel yet, so there's no introduction of nuclear material yet. So it is very important that the agency engages actively with the country to make sure that at the right time they proceed with this legal step, which is of course fundamental, because as of the moment where the fuel is introduced, now then of course their status changes, and they will have to be subject to a different inspection regime than they have now. We have been engaging, the agency has been engaging very positively with Saudi Arabia. So I hope that prior, and certainly expect that prior to that step, the legal steps will be taken. Nothing makes me think that this will not be the case. In terms of the technical assistance, that is part of what we do with many countries, with many acceding countries or countries that are preparing to step up their nuclear activities. And it's not only on the front end of the fuel cycle. We talk about safety, we talk about security with them, because it's not a minor step to change your activities from very minor lab scale activities to something which includes the presence of a reactor. Although it's a very small unit, for those knowing the characteristics of any such unit, is a unit especially or almost exclusively for education and training. But this changes the status. So we need to help them in capacity building, in preparing their technical people to do it right. So that is.
Let me just follow up specifically,
Yes.
because I'm not sure if
Sure.
you understand. I'm talking about uranium mining and exploration specifically. I mean, this is an activity that's kind of been on. It's been a very vigorous debate historically in
Yeah.
the agency about whether that should be part of the technical cooperation packages offered, and this is the case specifically where mining and exploration activity is ongoing right now in the absence of safeguards.
I would say something very general, Jonathan, not about that project specifically, but in general, whenever any nuclear activity is ongoing, the agency should be there. Training, preparing, assisting. Thank you.
Albert Otti, DPA, Chairman Price Agency.
Hello.
Hello. Two questions. Number
Yes.
one, on the board and Iran. Last time you also hoped for backing from the board on the access question in Iran. Nothing substantially has changed. Are you seeking stronger backing? Do you want them to underscore their backing with action, like a resolution? That's my first question. And the second question is, Iran issued a statement following your last report last week, in which it basically argued that the IAEA has no right to conduct investigations based on intelligence, what you
Yes.
refer to as member state information. What do you say to that argument?
Well, many important things in your question, certainly. In terms of the board, it is obviously up to the members to decide how to respond to our report. I, as DG, am not particularly seeking a particular way for them to respond. My responsibility is when I see that something important, relevant, substantial has to be put in front of the board, to do it. So, and to give them all the information that is behind my actions for them to understand, to evaluate, and to take the necessary reaction, action, or just nothing. It's up to the members. We think it's a very relevant issue, and that it should be put in front of them for their consideration. So this is one thing. And the second part was, sorry?
The second part was Iran's argument that the
Ah,
IAEA's
yes.
investigation should be based on intelligence from other countries.
Well, this is we've heard this before. What I can say is that, of course, the agency works on the basis of a very rigorous, I would say, dogged, meticulous technical and scientific analysis of information coming from the state itself, information that the agency has, and other types of information. So all of that, nothing is taken at face value. The agency goes, as I was saying, through a very systematic process of analysis. That is part of the agency standard operation. There's nothing really new about this. So, and there are, of course, no legal ambiguities here. When the agency requests any such access on the basis of information it has made that information its own, whatever that information may be. There is a universe, there is a whole spectrum of things that our technical experts, safeguards experts have in front of them. And so they analyze it, and it's only when they feel that there is enough there to justify a more specific, focused, pointed dialogue that we come with a question. And in this case, we started with questions. We got no answers on the questions, and at some point we decided to also ask for access to the places to know more. So our view on that, I think it's pretty clear.
Francois Murphy from Reuters. Hi, Digi.
See you.
Yes, see you too. Is there a danger that the more you press Iran on these old sites, which Iran argues is not entirely legitimate, so is there a danger that the more you press them on these old sites, they might reduce cooperation with the IAEA at the declared sites that are still currently in operation?
Well, that's for them to say. I hope, certainly, that that is not the case. I think Iran, and not only Iran, any other country, any other member state should not gauge or measure their degree of cooperation against the comfort that they have on the questions we are putting to them. Obligations are obligations. And we, of course, as the IAEA, cannot get into this sort of game of evaluating whether by carrying out our safeguards responsibilities, other things may happen so that we shouldn't be doing our work. That would be the realm of pure speculation and would make our technical work completely impossible to carry out, because there's always going to be some consideration somewhere that something could have impacts here or there. What we do is to focus on our mandate. When we have something relevant, we put the question.
Just to follow up, so this,
Yes.
this is one aspect of a relatively
Yes, sure.
multifaceted dialogue you have with Iran. So how would you describe the current status of your dealings with Iran?
There are different aspects to it. As I'm saying in my reports, and as I was saying in my statement, which I suppose it's public by now, there are areas where our cooperation is ongoing, and there is this issue where quite clearly we are in disagreement. So it's a mixed bag. I hope we can do better.
This is Takeshi Tsuchi of Kyodo News.
Can you? Thank you
Good
very
to
much.
see you again.
Yes, good to see you again. Yes.
See, I'd like to ask about the Iran safeguard report.
Yes.
And in case Iran continues to refuse giving access to the agency, the consequences might be serious if we consider what happened in Iraq many years back. And so I guess it's good to disclose as much information as possible. And could you identify these 3 locations that agency is requesting accesses? And could you explain how could these materials and activities have been serious in terms of non-proliferation?
Yes, yes. Well, in terms, I wouldn't get into comparisons. I think the situations are very different. Here we do have a process of engagement with Iran, and we do have a disagreement, which is clear, on this particular request for access. But we do also have, and this is well known, there are lots of other verification activities ongoing in the country. So I think one has to establish the facts clearly, in order not to rush into other speculations. In terms of the places are relevant because there is information on the 3 of them having been places where nuclear activity and the presence of nuclear material is very possible. The places are well known to us and to them, and suffice to say that it is clear where these places are.
Hello, Homa
Hello, how
Leslie.
are you?
Thank you from Press TV. Now, if I may, just two questions.
Yes.
Because you said in your remarks that the information that you have, you've had for a couple of years and you've been validating this information. We know that in 2015, the case of Iran's past nuclear activities was closed. So is this information coming after that decision was made about closing that dossier, so to speak? That's my first question. And my second question, if I may, a bit similar to the question that Reuters put to you about Iran's cooperation, because Iran has been publicly saying that it wants this close relationship with the agency to be maintained, and it wants this cooperation not to be adversely affected. So I'd just like to have your view on whether you think this situation is going to negatively influence this relationship. Thank you.
Yes. Well, two very relevant questions. On the first issue, let me say that we are not in the exercise of revising or reviewing past conclusions from the Board of Governors or from our Safeguards Department. What was said in 2015 was said then on the basis of information then, and we are not into that exercise. But one thing needs to be understood. The safeguards work, verification work, non-proliferation work is constant, is permanent. We evaluate old information, we evaluate new information, we evaluate a number of things. And then we decide whether it is worthy of a further exchange, which is basically what we are seeking. What we are seeking is a dialogue with Iran to ascertain whether the activities that we believe took place in these places and the nuclear material exists, is there or not, and should be put under safeguards or not. So in this case, it is obviously quite relevant, non-proliferation wise. In terms of the cooperation, of course, we need this cooperation. We must cooperate. And this has been part of my conversations with the Iranian authorities at higher levels. I believe that, and I regret that at this point we have this disagreement, and I will continue to exercise all possible efforts to overcome those. Cooperation is needed. We have a large dossier in front of us. We have to continue working together to provide all the clarifications that are expected.
Yes, hello, I'm Stephanie
Hello,
Lichtenstein.
how are you?
I'm a freelance journalist.
Yes.
I know you're not the chair of the board, but still, could you give us an indication of what we can expect today or in the next few days as a follow-up to your reports and the fact that there has not been a satisfactory answer by Iran, as you mentioned in your reports, for 4 months now. So is there anything we can expect by the board today or in the next few days, also given this controversy around the virtual meeting, whether it can actually adopt decisions, yes or no?
Yes. Well, my impression, what I get from the chair, of course, she is the authorized authority of the board, is that consultations have been continuing in a constructive way to ensure that the board continues its work, virtually or otherwise, in the next few days. I, of course, expect a very active discussion on the issues related to Iran. Regarding what kind of outcome, well, this is completely in the realm of countries. And as I was saying, it's not my area, and I'm not trying to be evasive here. I think you know me by now. I don't like to evade questions, but I believe that as Director General, I should be very careful in not indicating that I expect one thing or the other. I think my job was to prepare a report to say and to inform the Board of Governors of what I see and to express my impression. My impression is that I have a serious concern, so it's up to them to see and to evaluate and do something about it.
Thanks. Just a quick point of clarification on that. You said that you have to cooperate, you have a disagreement right now, but that you have a large dossier in front of you that needs to be evaluated. Is that a suggestion that there will be more sites coming up that you want to take environmental samples from? I mean, how large of a dossier is this?
Not at this moment, and let me clarify something. When I talk about dossier, I'm talking about the work on verification in Iran, all right, which is very important, as you know, and Iran itself has been saying that they are one of the most verified countries in the world, that there is all this activity ongoing in Iran, many inspections of different types, which is correct, because there is the normal verification work under the CSA, the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement, traditional, and the additional protocol. And on top of that, we have an added task, which was given to us by the board on the JCPOA. So this is my meaning when I refer to what we have in front of us. Nothing else, really.
Hi, this is Jordi from EFE.
Hello, Jordi.
Concerning this last point you were making, is it on the board, is your impression that everybody is clear that they're two separate things? Because my impression is some countries try to mix one thing with the other.
Yeah, well, it's a pertinent question, and some have views about this. And precisely this is the reason why I decided back in March that this should be subject to or treated under a separate report, so that there's no confusion here. One thing is our work on the JCPOA, which is, I would say, as an added task, as prescribed by the statute that mandates that we take, apart from our normal work, that we take specific assignments which are given to us by member states, and this was one. And the other thing is how Iran is complying with its normal obligations under the additional protocol, which is why we have this problem. Complementary access, as you know, is at the heart of the additional protocol. Is one of the most important measures that all countries, including Iran, agreed to when they agreed back in 1997 to have the additional protocol. So this is why these things need to be separated, because they are part of different issues.
Okay, we have a question over there.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Yoshitake from Japan's Asahi newspaper.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. My big question is, Board of Governors meetings are always conducted behind the door, and isn't it a good opportunity to promote more transparency, taking this opportunity of virtual setting? I know it's there is some legal difficulties, but IAEA is almost only international organizations which does not open the decision-making process. So what do you think about that?
Do you mean that, just to clarify your question, yes, that the virtual setting would be an opportunity to more transparency? Is that your idea?
Yes, to open the decision-making process, at least partly.
Well, I suppose that my clear answer would be no, because the meetings of the Board of Governors are restricted, are closed meetings. The fact that we have a virtual session this time, as you know, does not stem from a desire to be more open. And I'm not judging whether this is good or bad. For some, it would be perfect to have full transparency. For some others, not. The virtual nature of the meeting is concerns regarding meeting in a physical format like we are doing now, which were expressed at some point. And so the decision-making process, it's the same as always, and in this regard, it will continue to be a close one. Again, I'm not making here a value judgment about transparency, more transparency or less transparency. I'm just addressing your specific question. And the nature of this, out of the ordinary board is of a completely different origin. But we do have, and we will continue to have opportunities like this, I hope, to discuss openly what's been discussed and what's decided once this happens.
We have one more question over there.
If I may, I would like to add something to what Jonathan said about the Saudi cooperation with the agency.
Yes.
How do you describe it? And is the agency worried about more nuclear activities in Saudi Arabia, or is it just a simple educational training?
No, we are not worried about activities in Saudi Arabia. The construction of a research reactor is completely normal, and we have a good engagement with the authorities there, as I was explaining to Jonathan. So we don't have any worries in that regard. When we have worries, we say it and we explain why, not about Saudi Arabia in general.
Thank you very much. Any further questions?
Very good. Thank you for your interest. I continue to be at your disposal bilaterally if you so wish, and we will continue. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.